All right, so our alphabetical jazz steps. I hope you enjoyed your visit to the Ukraine. So I love this because it's this international language that we all speak in dance. Now, having said that, there are a few translations that are different. There might be a few things that steps that you recognize that we call maybe something a little bit different. But essentially, we're all speaking the same language, and that's what's so beautiful about Lindy Hop being really a worldwide global dance. Next slide, Susan. Yeah. So a lot of the names of the jazz steps were named after people or after things that really describe what it is that you're physically doing in the step. But one of the most famous ones that we like to talk about is, and that our students always love to do, is the Shorty George. So Shorty George, the step was named after Shorty George Snowden, and it was a move that he would do. You can see him here with his partner Big B. They were quite famous because he was so small and she was so tall, and Frankie Manning always attributed basically his whole wanting to get better and better and better so he could be as good as George Snowden. He was his idol. So George Snowden was dancing before Frankie Manning, also in the Savoy Ballroom, and he was the star. And then, you know, Frankie was the kid coming in. So the famous Shorty George Snowden is here. And moving on. So another famous dancer of the Savoy, two famous dancers who were also part of Whitey's Lindy Hoppers, which was the dance troupe that came out of the Savoy that Frankie Manning was part of, were Al Minns and Leon James. So by the time the 60s came around and you know, everything had changed, the music had changed, there wasn't really a whole lot of Lindy hopping going on. The Savoy was closed by then. So Leon James and Al Minns kind of made a second career of demonstrating, keeping the dance alive by demonstrating the steps. They would go on a lot of TV shows. They were interviewed extensively for the jazz book by Marshall Stearns. And so here you're going to see Al Minns and Leon James doing some demonstrations of jazz steps on the Show of the Week in 1961.
Most of the jazz bands of the time played in places where people danced because jazz was a music that almost forced you to dance. As jazz music spread all over the country, so did the new jazz dances of the 20s. The shimmy, the Charleston, the black bottom, the snake hips, and the Lindy hop.
Okay. And now here's somebody that most of you should know, Sammy Davis Jr., demonstrating the camel walk.
Wait a minute, brother. You know the old soulful dance they call the camel walk? Yeah. You remember the camel walk? Yeah, I know the camel walk. Yeah, brother. Hey. Yeah. Can you do the camel walk right here? I can try. You don't mind it? I don't mind. You don't mind it? I'll try to get it on. Camel walk, make him do it.
Okay. So now we have Al Minns again. Now, Al Minns and Sugar Sullivan are going to be demonstrating some solo jazz steps. And this is an excerpt from a Mama Lou Parks documentary. So the three names that you see on the screen are super important to the legacy of Lindy Hop. Al Minns we already talked about. And by the way, Al Minns was also in the famous Hell's a Poppin' dance sequence. So Al Minns, Sugar Sullivan, you actually have to thank for showing Chubby Checker a move in Lindy Hop called swivels. And that became the twist. So you can thank Sugar Sullivan for that. And Mama Lou Parks, she really was responsible for really helping to keep the dance alive in an instructional way. So she was a hat check girl at the Savoy, and she founded a dance troupe in 1959 that specialized in jitterbug and Lindy Hop. So 1959, you have to remember, is after the peak of Lindy Hop and jitterbug from that time period, right? So 59, music's changing. So she wanted to keep it going. So she formed this dance troupe. And in fact, Gregory and Maurice Hines were featured dancers for her in many of her programs. I love this story. In 1955, she got a grant. And the grant was to teach, now remember, she lived in Harlem, to teach square dancing to youngsters. And she thought, well, maybe square dancing isn't going to really be very popular on 127th Street. So she decided to use the grant to teach jazz dance. And so here she is. We're very thankful for what Mama Lou Parks did. And here she is in this documentary. So you get to see her close up. You'll see her name is spelled two different ways. It was spelled L-U, but in some newspaper clippings and other things like that, and this apparently documentary, they spelled it L-O-U. So.
Now another young man who has that slogan. I saw him out dance and out sit 4 young ladies, juicy, fine young things, and they said, "Is that really the legend?" I said, "That's the legend." The very wonderful Al Minns and his fabulous partner, Sugar Sullivan. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm making things just present. 1930s, everybody went to the Savoy Ballroom. Bubbles and shoes. Loud. They did dance called the Big Apple. New York City sound. They did the boogie. In the Big Apple.
All righty. So
Just a little something else about Al Minns. During the 80s, when people started bringing the Lindy Hop back to dance studios, he was in New York. He was the first one. He was even before Frankie Manning in the dance studios teaching the dance.
yeah, so he was brought into Sandra Cameron's studio, and so he was the original Lindy Hop teacher at Sandra Cameron, brought in by that studio. Okay, so speaking of teaching, so Chester and I had the great fortune and experience of being able to teach on the Holland America cruise line for 3 months through the South Pacific and Asia. And so we got to teach all over. It was so much fun. And here's what happened.
That's called crazy legs.
Crazy.
Legs. So crazy. Right, one more. This is called tick-tock. Start like that. Your knees bent. Okay? And your hands up. Now what? Hey. Hands on your knees. Switch. Switch.
La switch mean bahwa pukul 5 dari sendiri.
There you go. Good. Good. That's called tick-tock. Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock.
Oh, so I just love that. So we wanted to also kind of let you know, so we've kind of looked at different social jazz steps, and now we want to show you how they work in choreography. So there's a social dance choreography, what we're calling social dance choreography, like the shim sham. So many of you have done the shim sham, many of you know the shim sham, many of you have participated in the shim sham. It is the swing dance, line dance, and it's kind of like if you're a swing dancer, if you're a Lindy Hopper, you need to know the shim sham, because anywhere that you go, if they play a shim sham, people are gonna dance it, and you don't need to have a partner. You don't need to even be any place that you've ever been before. They play the shim sham, you know the shim sham, you jump in and you do the shim sham. And so when Chester and I, for many years, we also taught in the school system here in the Hudson Valley, and we had formed a dance troupe called the Hudson Valley Swing Kids. And here's the Hudson Valley Swing Kids doing the shim sham.
Push, push, and kick, crossover. Push, push, and kick, crossover, and kick, crossover, and kick. Freeze. Freeze. 5, 6, 7.
Okay, I hate to tell you how old those kids are now, but anyway, so another very famous swing dance that social choreography, jazz steps, is something that was created more contemporarily in the 2000s, somewhere along the 2000s. And Ryan Francois, who is a dancer out of London, he actually created it as a warm-up exercise when he was working as the choreographer for the movie Swing Kids. So he was working with the actors and he was doing the choreography for that movie and wanted to warm up. So he created the jitterbug stroll. And now that's something that swing dancers also do, that has become a worldwide swing dance that you can jump into. So here's Ryan himself leading the jitterbug stroll. And I especially like this because you'll see that not everybody actually knows what they're doing. So check it out. So that's the great Ryan Francois, who also, by the way, was the choreographer and also performed with his then wife in the original Broadway production Swing. And now moving on, or actually moving backwards in time. So there's a documentary that was put together in the 50s called The Spirit Moves. And when Chester and I first started learning to dance, and it was before the internet. so in order to see The Spirit Moves, you had to actually
the only copy that existed apparently was at the Smithsonian in Washington. If you wanted to look at these people who invented this dance doing it in the Spirit Moves, you had to go there, and it was almost like checking out a book. You had to, reserve time. You had to go. They would play it. They only played it once. You couldn't stop it and rewind or anything. They played it through and you watched it. And that was your chance to see them do it. That's before the internet, before YouTube, before everything under the sun wound up on YouTube. Thanks to the internet and YouTube, we can all see it.
Right. So this is the Tranky Do, which is another social jazz choreographed piece that we sometimes teach. It's not something that you can, none of these are anything that you can just jump into. You kind of can jump into the Shim Sham and Jitterbug Stroll because you can kind of watch it. Tranky Do is a little bit more complicated. So we have Al Minns, we have Leon James, who you have met. Pepsi Bethel, you have not met yet. Pepsi Bethel is the person that I used to study on how to do the Shorty George. So when you see him, he's the one he's in the center most of the time, and I think he has a scarf around his neck.
Yeah.
But check out Pepsi Bethel's Shorty George. It's pretty amazing. He looks like he has rubber legs. So here we go.
The dipsy-doo will get in your hair, and if it gets you, it couldn't be worse. The things you say will come out in reverse, like you love I and me love you. That's the way the dipsy-doodle works. The dipsy-doodle is easy to find. It's almost always in the back of your mind. You never know it until it's too late, and then you're in such a terrible state, like the moon jumps over the cowhead diddle. That's the way the dipsy-doodle works. When you think that you're crazy, you're the victim of a dipsy-doodle. But it's not your mind that's hazy, it's your tongue that is fault, not your noodle. Noodle. See, dipsy-doodle. Dip, 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 dipsy-doodle. You think you're crazy, the things that you say, like rhythm that I and high. That's the way the dipsy-doodle works.
So if you want to study how to do that Shorty George, just check out Pepsi Bethel.
And the crazy legs.
Yes, and everything. So those of you who came to our last few dances that we had last year that we were able to do, Chester was teaching a jazz routine called the Loose Wig Shuffle. So we thought we would just show you a minute or so of that. So here we are learning the loose wig, so learning it. So nobody knew it, Chester's teaching it, and here we go. Not so bad for just having learned it, right? So now we want to kind of move into another kind of genre of jazz dancing, solo jazz dancing, and that is choreographed that are made for performing. So what we've just been looking at are not made for performing. They're really made on a social aspect. You learn it, you go anywhere in the world, they're playing it, you can jump in. These are choreographed ensemble pieces that are made for performing. They're not made for you to jump into. So I think, having said that, the first then what we're going to talk to kind of
straddles
the two. Yes. So Chester, you want to talk about this?
So the Big Apple is something that a lot of swing dance scenes have sort of taken for themselves, and if the song comes on, and there's only one song you can really do it to, if that song comes on, everyone will jump up and do the Big Apple. The Big
Who
Apple.
knows it?
Who knows it? Who you know? Because you'll see it's quite involved, but a lot of people have gone to the trouble to learn it because it's so much fun. This is where it originally came from. Whitey's Lindy Hoppers in a movie called from 1939 called Keep on Punchin'. And you can see some of Whitey's Lindy Hoppers right here named.
Yeah, so these are the people that actually performed it. Frankie Manning did the choreography on it. And the precursor to that was that there was a national dance craze of a dance called the Big Apple that didn't look anything like this. And Whitey, who was the leader of Whitey's Lindy Hoppers, wrote to Frankie in California and tried to explain to him what this craze was. And Frankie created his own Big Apple. And someday we'll show you the comparison, but right now we'll just look at Frankie's Big Apple. And so this is the original choreography performance as a performance in Keep Punching, which also was then made into a short with just featuring this dance. So hit it, Susan. Frankie's wearing the black pants. So that's the original, what we refer to as the Keep Punchin' Big Apple. And then, as Chester said, there are subsequent dance scenes throughout the world who will learn the Big Apple, that actual choreography, and do it. We've taught it many times, and there's some people that are on this Zoom who have done it many times. And in 2012, we actually collaborated with Lauren Keenan, she's on this call somewhere, who she taught her team up there the Big Apple. We taught our team down here the Big Apple, and then we went up to Albany to their First Friday dance and did the Big Apple together, never having done it together before. So here we are. All right. Thank you, Lauren. That was fun. We got to do that again. Okay, so many of you have seen in our past presentations the Nicholas brothers performing their amazing tap routine in the movie Stormy Weather from 1943. But we're going to show you another dance sequence that happens just before that. And here it is.
Ain't that something?
You ain't seen nothing yet. Talk about a treat. You should see that chick and me strutting down the street. My, ain't that something? Hear me shout. Ain't that something? Ain't that something to shout about?
All right, so obviously that was the famous Cab Calloway, and that was Lena Horne initially, and Bilbo Jangles. Robinson. Okay, so and then Chester's Cool Cats and Kittens, which is our performance troupe where Chester choreographs, and a lot of the times based on vernacular jazz moves. And here we are in 2009. So
I just want to say something about this. If you remember back, one of the Minns and James clip, they were dancing really fast, and then they slowed down for the sake of the steps called snake hips. The inspiration for the first part of this is really that kind of movement, slow and kind of slinky. And then the other thing is, I think we're showing the whole choreography. It switches about halfway through to a more upbeat song, but it's the same piece of choreography done in a different style because the music changed. So take it away, Susan.
Okay, enter.
To fire that videographer. Okay, and this is the next year, the following year, with all the cats join in, and I think Susan was then joining us at that point. So you can find Susan in this as well as us. And again, Chester Freeman, choreographer. And we did this up in Albany.
She's fine with this.
So I hope by now that you are recognizing a lot of those jazz steps, from our alphabetical jazz steps in the beginning to these jazz steps. Now, so the question always is, well, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? How do you get to perform in Albany? How do you get to perform at all? Well, practice, practice, practice. No one gets it right the first time. That's what rehearsals are for. So we're going to give you a little back door into our rehearsal process. And Susan has been kind enough to offer herself as a guinea pig. So here we go. Susan, hit it.
Any commentary from Ron or Chester? Just keep going.
I think this was, this looks like a bit from the thing we did at the Spiegel tent back in, I guess, 2013.
Our
So
first
we had a
one.
really large group then, and this is just a handful of you. And this was just a very short section in the midst of all the mayhem and all the aerials and the people flying around and flipping.
Right. So here's you can see Ron and Susan and one of our dancers named Stacy. All right, let's see the next one.
6, 7, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and you go first.
I do.
Yeah, 5. That's it.
Okay.
5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. I go. 6. So you got 1 for each. 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7.
Oh, I can stop pointing, can't I? That's an example of how we have to run through things, Chester's patience with us, and how he is such a wonderful instructor and choreographer that he really, he lets us be ourselves, like I said, is patient with us, but teaches us so that we can go out there and perform in front of people and have that emphasis. I mean, you know, when I was putting together this presentation, I found those videos, and that's just such a great example for our dance community of what solo jazz is and how you can learn it, how anyone can do it, trust me, and the instructors we have will just make it happen.
Yes, I kind of marvel at the fact that I've never heard Chester raise his voice, although he certainly has cause to. I mean, for some of us, particularly me, jazz steps do not come easy for me, depending on the step. So I have to practice them over and over and over again until I finally get it, and hope that, you know, on opening night, it comes out right, you know, this sort of thing. The reason I do this at all is, aside from the fact that I do enjoy the final outcome, is to learn some of these, you know, jazz steps because they look so cool. I just wish my body would, you know, go more easily into, you know, what these steps are supposed to look like. But however they look like when I do them, nothing beats the applause you get when you do perform this in front of an audience that doesn't know what to expect. But practice, practice, practice. I forget how many hours go into every minute of performance. It's a lot, and it does take work. But the way I categorize it is there's work and effort, which is exactly the same thing in terms of energy. Work is something I really don't want to do, but I have to do. Effort is something I love doing. Same amount of energy expended, but this I love. Not quite sure why, but I love it. You know, it's a camaraderie amongst the people that you're dancing with. It's the constant screw up, do it again. Oh, I didn't get that right. But it's also each of us helping the other person get it. If there's a step that I get that Susan doesn't get, I'll help her, and vice versa. We all do that. It's one for all and all for one. And again, I need to reiterate that I've never heard Chester yell at anybody. You know, he's not a Bob Fosse or anything like that. I don't know how he manages to hold his temper or his patience, you know, when he's, you know, showing us how to do some of these steps. And we're still doing them. You know, we were practicing last night to do a performance that'll be performed whenever COVID lets us, and so on. And I finally did. I know I'm rambling on here, but I finally did get a step, not to perfection, but to at least do it, that years ago I couldn't get to save my life. And it's the turning tap step, or
Turn, tap, break, turn.
tap, break, turn. See, I can't even pronounce it. But I actually did it, you know, yesterday. And it's not whether I can do it, it's whether I can do it again that tells me that I really have it. You know, I'll settle for 3 in a row, you know, at this point. But, you know, all I can say is to those of you out there that may be thinking about doing a performance with us or with anyone, you know, jump in the deep end. The water's fine. You'll see the satisfaction, you know, once you get to perform. Trust me.
And I just want to say that when Chester started the Cool Cats and Kittens, I can't remember what year it was. Do you remember what year it was? But he actually did it for me because I was terrified to perform. And I was like, can you force me to perform by creating a group in which I have to perform? So, you know, sometimes you just need to go out of your comfort level, your comfort zone, to get to the next level. So that's something that definitely being part of something like that allows you to do. And certainly the pandemic has given us lots of time to be able to do these solo jazz routines and learning choreography and all of that kind of stuff. So so that's happening actually, as Ron mentioned, as we speak. We're working on that now. And so the next phase that we want to talk about is really how solo jazz actually not only for performance but also in competition. So there are many large dance events and international dance events where solo jazz will be one of the categories where dancers are competing. So the first one that we're going to show you is actually a Naughty Swing. They were the jazz team champions from Taiwan. So they are doing a choreographed ensemble piece. This is in 2018 and they did win. And again, I just want you to notice where these dances are coming from. I mean, we've been in the Ukraine today. We've been in we're going to Taiwan now. So this is a global dance. And so hit it, Susan.
From Taiwan, everybody, give it up for Naughty Swing.
So if you think there's a lot of practice for performances, for competition where everything is being judged and you can't do anything but perfect in order to win, that's really high level practicing. And now we wanted to actually bring you to an invitational solo jazz finals. So an invitational in competition, this is at the International Lindy Hop Championships in 2018, the same year. An invitational are professional dancers who are invited to compete. So as opposed to what you just saw, which are just regular people who are dancers, who are dancing in ensemble jazz, this will be all professionals, all people that teach all over the world. You will recognize some of them perhaps. And they're also not doing a routine. They are in fact doing completely improvised dance based on whatever music comes up. So they don't know what music is coming up. They don't know what steps they're going to be doing, except that they're professionals and they do this all the time. So hit it, Susan.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to my man Jonathan Stout and his rug cutters. Here we go. This is an unjudged intro. Is that right? Here we go. up on your feet, everybody.
All righty, so did you have a favorite? Remember, they were competing against each other. So the winner was Naomi, the one who was wearing black. Skye Humphries came in second. So USA came in first and second and last. I want to invite Chester to talk a little bit now because when I first saw this, go back. Susan, go back, thanks. I wanted to have Chester talk a little bit about this because he's been in competitions and he's judged competitions. And for me, when I'm looking at these, the first time I saw this, I was like, well, I don't even know who I would pick because they're all amazing. So I want to invite Chester to talk a little bit about, because he right away said Naomi, so.
Yeah, well, so if I were to pick my favorite dancer out of these five, it would almost certainly be Skye, because I've taken classes with him and I've been watching him. Skye, actually, he started as a little boy up in Ithaca, New York. And so he's been doing this, since he was in his early teens. But so has Naomi. And so all in all, Skye's my favorite dancer. But when I watched this competition, I couldn't help but notice that she was the one working the least hard in what she was doing. Everyone else was rather flamboyant. Pretty much everyone else's movements were bigger than hers, but she was the one most locked into the music. She was the one whose transitions seemed effortless. There was never a false moment in the whole thing she was doing. It's probably not no accident that given how smooth she was, she's also a musician. She has a swing band herself, or she did before COVID. I think she still does. She's the singer. She's the front singer for the group. So, this is often a hit or miss. The song comes on. They all knew the song, Digga-Digga-Doo.
But they didn't know that was the song
They didn't. They had no idea until it started playing that that's what they had. Also, they don't know what the band's going to do at particular moments. So and I couldn't help but notice that Naomi hit a lot of moments in the music. Not only when she was spotlighted, but when everyone came back out and started dancing, she was nailing a moment as she was crossing in front of everybody else. She was nailing a moment in the music repeatedly. And then when she got off to the side and she was doing a little bit of what was actually the Shim Sham with, I think it was Skye and Remy were doing it together, and she joined in, and then everyone sort of went off on their own, and the music got it was still fast, but it was kind of slinky. And the quality of her movement at that moment was just extraordinary. She was doing a little slinky sort of crazy legs, but her upper body was moving independent of her lower body, and her head was moving independent of all of it. So, I mean, she was just the one to watch for sure.
Yeah. So judge's insight. Okay, so now Susan, you can advance the slide. Thank you very much. So we thought a suitable ending for our presentation tonight would be the global Shim Sham that was created for Frankie Manning as a tribute to on his 95th birthday. Anyone who is a swing dancer should know who Frankie Manning is, but he is the man who basically was named the ambassador of Lindy Hop. He was the one who originated he originated the first air step ever, but he was part of Whitey's Lindy Hoppers. He was choreographer. He did the keep punching, which we saw, Hell's a Poppin'. So very famous dancer in his day, his heyday of being a performer, and then had a complete second life after he retired from the post office to bring swing into Lindy Hop to a new generation of dancers in the revival in the 1980s. And he did pass away shortly before his 95th birthday. His birthdays were always huge events, global events. So that one turned into a basically a celebration of his life. And we, of course, were there. And so dancers from all around the world did a shim sham, and it came together in this global shim sham for Frankie. So let's take a look.
When I was a kid, about 3:30, my daddy said, son, come here to me. Says things may come and things may go. There's one thing you ought to know.
Take what you do.
It's the way hot you do it.
Take what you do.
It's the way hot you do it.
Take what you do.
It's the way hot you do it.
That's what gets results.
Mama, mama.
Take what you do.
It's the time that you do it.
Take what you do.
It's the time that you do it.
Take what you do.
It's the time that you do it.
That's what gets results.
Oh,
You can try hard. Don't mean a thing.
don't mean a thing.
Take it easy.
Greasy.
Then you dive to swing. Oh, and take what you do.
It's the place that you do it.
Take what you do.
It's the place that you do it.
Take what you do.
It's the place that you do it.
That's what gets results.
Mama, mama.
Take what you do.
It's the way hot you do it.
Take what you do.
It's the way hot you do it.
Take what you do.
It's the way hot you do it.
That's what gets results.
Mama, mama.
Take what you do.
It's the time that you do it. It's the time that you do it.
Take what you do.
It's the time that you do it. Oh,
Can try hard. Don't mean a thing.
don't mean a thing.
Take it easy.
Greasy.
Then you dive to swing. Oh, and take what you do.
It's the place that you do it.
Take what you do.
It's the place that you do it.
Take what you do.
It's the place that you do it.
That's what gets results.
About 3:30, Daddy said, son, come here to me. Those things may
So I
come,
hope this gives you an idea of
one thing
how
you ought to know.
large the dance community is, the Lindy Hop community, and also how small the dance community is, because we can go anywhere in the world and do this dance. So we're going to open this up for questions and comments. we will, I encourage you to subscribe to our e-newsletter. If you're already not subscribed to it, you can go to our website, Got2lindy.com, and that way you'll always know what we're up to. This presentation has been recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to that as well. So you will have a copy of the entire, or you will be able to view the entire recording over again, except for the part that we got rid of in the beginning. So thank you so much for joining us. We're open for questions, comments, observations. We're back to a gallery view, and if you're not, then change your view so you're back to a gallery view so we can see each other again and hear each other. And if you have a question or comment, just unmute yourself and say what you got to say. Daria, unmute yourself. Unmute.
I put it in the chat. I just wanted to ask, that last clip.
Yeah.
Is that available on YouTube? Is that something that is available to share? That's a beautiful clip. I loved it.
Yes, I'm sure that's where we got it. You can ask Susan in particular where she pulled it out.
$10, $10, I'll tell you.
I never get tired of seeing that clip. I've seen it before. I don't know how many times I've looked at it. Not only does it show the international side of jazz steps, Lindy Hop, the music, and so on and so forth. I noticed that not everybody knows what they're doing, but everybody's laughing, everybody's having a good time, everybody's into the spirit, and that's what this is all about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. And you noticed Dawn Hampton was in it too.
Yes.
Yes. So our beloved Dawn did have a little cameo appearance there, and we miss her very much. And we were very fortunate in the Hudson Valley to have Dawn visit us often. She was a good friend to the Hudson Valley.
Mm-hmm.
So she came to many of our dances and events. Yeah. Comments, questions, observations?
Please lay them on us.
Yes, Carrie, unmute yourself.
I loved all the video. It was really a trip. I had a question for you, Chester. You mentioned when we were talking about movies earlier, I think, you said something about keep on something ship. It sounded like keep on tongue.
Punching.
Punching.
So
the clip is from a movie called Keep on Punching, and the movie has something to do with a boxer. But in this particular moment in the movie, and it was very common back then in movies, both Hollywood movies and movies like this, to have a dance sequence.
Even if it had nothing to do with the
right.
Film.
So I think the setup here was that the characters were in this nightclub and there was going to be this performance. And so that's how the performance wound up on film.
Oh, okay.
And then, like Linda said, it was actually this was 1943, they took the dance clip out and made it a short as well, which was called Jittering Jitterbugs. But if you're looking for it on YouTube, you want to look for it, Big Apple, Keep Punching. And look for the most recent one. Somebody colorized it as well. But you want to look for the most recent one because the old clip, the sound is off from the dancing. And somebody came along in the last couple of years and fixed that and put it back up on YouTube. So if you go to a more recent one, you'll get the good clip.
Great, thank you. I hate to go to regret, but I regret that I didn't find you 20 years earlier.
You're here now.
You're here now, and there's
Yeah,
plenty of fun in store.
Nothing isn't the start.
Yep. Other comments, questions?
Yeah. Chester, do you have any particular stories or challenges about your choreography that you've done?
Challenges or stories about the choreography? I don't know. That's a good question. Well, when I'm doing my choreography, I have now and then physical challenges to doing them myself. I have
I guess it's about working with a group of people that are, you don't know how it's gonna go. I mean, I know,
yes, well,
once you had somebody broke an arm or something?
Yeah.
oh yeah, that was, somebody broke an arm in the rehearsal, the run through before the performance. This was
10 minutes before the performance.
right. So this particular couple were rehearsing their aerial, and they had a miscommunication. Actually, they didn't have a miscommunication. They knew what they were about to do, and then when they did it, the follower kind of second guessed what the leader was doing, because it felt like they were doing the real thing. They were going all the way, and they weren't supposed to. And so she tried to go all the way through the aerial and got all discombobulated and fell and broke her elbow. So yeah, that was a challenge, because I had to re-choreograph the routine with them out of it, and I had to cut the music as well. So I had to scramble right before that,
because they had a solo, and it was at the Spiegel tent, so the stakes were very high. This is for those of you who don't know, this is our big performance of the year, and it was literally right before they were opening the door.
May I say this? May I say this? I was in that performance, and
yes,
I took the injured person to the hospital. And as Chester said, he had to re-choreograph it, but I didn't get the memo.
Oh, no.
So I am, and this again it's a tribute to the wonderful learning that we get. Okay, we're in the middle of the Spiegel 10 performance, which is our big hoo-ha, and I realize I'm out of place. And the music is going on. I've got to keep dancing and smiling. And the whole time I'm thinking, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do to get back into place? Well, there was a piece of the music. I got back into place because it was a combination of things. It was a combination of the performance attitude that you've got to, make it happen, and knowing the music and knowing steps and being with people I love. So I just found myself in place, not knowing that even some of the other dancers around me were thinking, what is she going to do? What is she going to do? And it all worked out.
I'd love to.
I have a similar. I'm sorry. I had a similar.
No, Carrie wants to say.
Go ahead.
No, she asked you about your stories.
Oh, I just have a similar story, but it actually goes all the way back to when I first started performing. And I was performing in the city with a troupe called Big Apple Lindy Hoppers. And I did a similar thing that Susan is describing here, where we had a routine that moved all around the floor. So in any one moment, you were in a certain place on the stage, and then you were somewhere else on the stage. And it was not only jazz dance, it was, jazz steps, but it was Lindy Hop as well. So we were swinging out and doing all kinds of other things. And at one point I was supposed to take my partner and do a swing out variation called Sachet. And I swung around, took my partner, and then took off. And my partner says, "Chester, where are you taking me?" And mind you, I was dancing with the director of the Big Apple Lindy Hoppers, and I took her off in the wrong direction. So I had another sachet to do. I brought her into the 3 and 4, and I sashayed back to where I was supposed to be, and no one was the wiser except for me and Laura. So that's the sort of thing you do. You danced into the wrong place. Well, you better dance back to where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I've done that many times. I remember one performance I was in it late. I had something to do for the first, I guess, 2 rehearsals or whatever. So when I got in, I filmed it, but I filmed it from the front, which is a mistake, because, studying from that, their left is right, my right. Left. I should have done it from the back, but I didn't. So when it comes time for me to perform this, I'm opposite of everybody else. It's like I'm the negative and everybody else is the positive and sort of thing. So I figured it out. I finagled my way back. I tried to reverse in my mind what I was supposed to do, which is what everyone else was doing. And I remember something that someone said, probably Chester, if you screw up, pretend you're right and everybody else is wrong. And that's what I did. Apparently, nobody noticed what I was doing anyway. And, you know, my fear is I don't care what I do, as long as I don't mess anyone else up. If I'm doing something the opposite of what everyone else is doing, I'm right. I'm supposed to be that way and everybody else is off. And what are they doing? So that's the attitude I generally have. But if you're ever in a performance and you're filming it for the purpose of practicing, do it from the back.
I wanted to tell a little story. This was the mid-70s Manhattan West End bar in the Columbia area. My friend at the time, Phil Shapp, who was a radio DJ historian and teacher, would get these guys together who played in the 30s and 40s, and they'd play at the West End. Great music. I don't even know who they all were. I just love the music. The place was packed. I come back to the ladies' room. I'm down trying to get down this narrow aisle, and this guy, this tall black man, says, "You want to dance?" And I said, "Sure." So we start. I'm just keeping the rhythm with him, and he's a really strong lead. He's got me in the air, down through his leg, trying to. It's like, oh, I had no idea what I was doing, but I just went with it, you know. And he was, like I said, a strong lead. I'll never know who it was.
Interesting. You might have danced with Frankie Manning for all you know.
Maybe, or maybe, I don't know. I'll never know. But that was, I've never done that before or since, but I wish I was like 30 years younger, I would.
Funny. Any other comments or questions? Okay. All right, so this has been wonderful. Thank you for bearing with our little mishap in the beginning, and we will again be here next month. Next month we're going to be doing a tribute. It is Black History Month, so we'll be doing the Great Migration and Dance. So come and check that out. And stay tuned for all of our events and things that we're always doing. And we will see you all soon once again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this, really, all of it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We appreciate your attention.